In this video, we will be covering how to set up and design your case in exocad using iCam photogrammetry and the NobelBioCare workflow for the creation of a NobelProcera zirconia implant bridge by entering in a new case. So let's select client, select the patient name, and the technician name, which will be me, Mr. Charlie. Okay, we're going to go under the default settings. We're going to change this to add the NobelBioCare dental share. So we're going to click on the dental share, which is going to bring us into the NobelBioCare workflows. And when you click on that, it's going to prompt you a little more information, which is going to be your account number. Okay, so we're going to go in now. We're going to add our anatomic wax up, and you can see our NobelBioCare, which is the FCZ implant bridge. Okay, it's going to be screw retained scan bodies. We're going to do a digital design and optional for our gingival. Okay, by holding down the control key, now we can add our implant positions accordingly. And in this case, we've got our 6 implant sites. Next, we will add the ponic, which same thing. We're going to hit our optional, and then again, control with the ponic positions. Okay, and once we have our positions noted, we're going to indicate our scanner, and in this case we are going to indicate our iMetric photogrammetry, and that is going to be hit save. And once we save that information, we're going to go into Open in Explorer, which is going to open up a window that's going to contain all the information in the dental project that we're going to need. Software. And we are going to take that dental project file, and we're going to drag and drop that into the software. What this is going to do is bring in our implant positioning and patient information. In the drop-down menu as shown, you will see 2 workflows for a temporary and a final. We're going to choose the final. Hit apply to all. We're going to hit our finish, and now we will start to bring in our data to merge. So we're going to go and find in our list under the exocad, and we're going to identify the implant positions, and we will highlight those positions and drag and drop them into the iMetric software. With the drop down, we're going to call them iCam bodies and hit OK. And now this brings in the data points. Next, we will locate the file for our model, and which will be our jaw scan with our white caps. And we will bring that in, and with the drop down, we're going to call that implant. And very important to click the box for use the mesh for export and hit the OK button. That exports that mesh. At this point, we are going to go ahead and align by clicking on the icon below and orientate the model as shown in the diagram to the left. Okay. By hitting the position indicator on the top, it will allow us to select the highlighted implant position and go ahead and do the matching by using the align button. I like to select 3 or 4 distinct areas, usually on the top and corresponding on the sample on the left. Hit the align button and it will align with the cap. And we will go ahead and do that with each area around the horn. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same on the sample cap as well. Hit the align tab and it is aligned. We will hit the accept button, see, and move on to the next site. And A little bit tedious, but this is the critical part of matching the implant positions to the soft tissue data. Without this, the implant positions won't know where they are in space. Same thing with our fourth site. If something is off, it will allow you to redo it or go back as you need to. But in this case, the data capturing was pretty clean, so the alignment is very nicely around the horn. The last one, hit align. Once everything is accepted, we can hit our check mark. And to the right, this is where we're going to compute our transformation. So we're going to hit this button there that says compute transformation. This shows us data, and then we're going to apply that transformation, and then we've now corrected our model as seen. So now at this point, we're going to save that data, and when we save the data, it automatically will save back into our exocad folder. So now we go back to our exocad workup, and when we hit the design tab, it will automatically open up in our dental CAD and push all that information from the iCam into our exocad without having to do any matching in exocad. As you can see, there they are. Is now entered into exocad and ready to begin adding more details to this. First thing we're going to do now is bring in the antagonist, and so we will locate our files from our file management, bring the antagonist in, and make sure everything is in good alignment. As you see, it is not in alignment, so we're going to go through and start bringing in our other scans and our bite scans so we can get everything well aligned. So next thing, we'll bring our pre-op, which is our upper temporary scan, and as you see, we have the relation between the upper and lower. And very important when we start to load meshes that we label everything proper so we know what's going in. So our bite scan comes in, which is going to help keep everything well aligned. So the jaw scan, which is aligned, we don't want to touch that. So we're going to go into our aligned meshes, and we're going to now use our bite scan to align. So here is our pre-op. We're going to manually separate them together. And we're going to look at data points. This is one of the most critical steps because these are two different data sets. So we want to make sure that we find some like areas to connect. Okay, so we're going to look at typically 3 to 4 areas is enough to get good alignment. And we don't want to ever move the jaw scan. Okay, so we're going to perform the alignment and hit the best fit matching, and we're going to see how well the two meshes merge. Okay, and this takes a second to run that, and we see some blue, which is nice. I will go in and now align mesh, and I will now align that pre-op scan with the upper part of the bite scan. I typically like to use my bite scan as a separate mesh. So here we go. We're going to put those together. It's best fit matching. That should turn blue when you have a perfect match now. And there's our dark blue. So we know we have a perfect match. The last area now we will hit align meshes. Now we will align our antagonist. Again, I like to hit the manual key, which allows you to separate it out. If you hit the control button, you can also maneuver it if you need to. I've got enough visibility for data points to be able to click on 3 or 4 to merge that together. And we'll perform that alignment, and that should turn blue as well. Perfect. So now we've got the data sets we need imported, and now we are ready to move to the next step. Smile Creator, and I like to just go straight to the wizard with this. Okay, so make sure you're in the wizard. Hit the next button. It's going to first ask you to correct the pre-op scan. We've already done that, so we'll skip that. Next, it's going to look at emergence profile. We're going to skip that as well since we have ideal emergence profile. So first, we're going to load our images, okay? It's going to first ask for a retracted image. So I'm going to go into my file where my photos are, and I'm going to choose a nice retracted smile view, okay? And I like to do this with the teeth closed. And you can see we've got an OptiGate that really keeps things retracted well for us. I'm going to click on 2 distinct areas. I typically like one high, one low. And we start to now manipulate to match the model with the scan. By holding the dots, you can actually stretch and pull and make it wider, softer. Or if you click on your model with your mouse, you can move the model as well. So you can move the picture, or you can move the model just so you can get really nice alignment. And I do spend a little bit of time. I typically make sure my 6 to 11 is perfectly aligned. Next, we're going to bring in our full smile shot. Okay, so we're going to look for a nice full smile view. Bring that picture in, and now we're going to go ahead and match the teeth to teeth. Same thing, click on 2 like areas, and now we can use the alignment tools there to get those nice and aligned as best as we can. It's really important that the pictures are taken on the same plane. That's going to throw you off if they're at a different angle. This one's pretty close. The next is the cutout for the lips, so the lip curve, and we're just going to follow that lip curve right around. Just going to allow us to replace the teeth with our new design nicely. So hit next on that, and now it's going to ask us to click on the eyes. Okay, so we're going to dead center on the eyes, and this is going to help make sure our photo is aligned so we can set our midline nicely. Okay, so here you can see that that line is off on our midline, so we're going to take that midline and go where we want. Okay, so you see we can have a little midline correction to be done. And now we're just going to take the tools and we're going to align for our smile design. Okay, this is going to help with our cant and allow when we bring the teeth in for them to be in the exact position that we want. And it really makes it facially driven. So you can see exactly the curve we're looking at, corner of the mouth. It'll make for a much better rendering coming in. Okay. If I wanted to, I could also adjust the width of the golden proportions. In this case, it's pretty good. The library, I can select different library teeth if I'd like. And in this case, I kind of like what I have. And through these tools, you can maneuver the teeth from height, width. You can move them as a group. You can move them individually. You can rotate on the arch, but you can really get your teeth positioned pretty ideally. And you can, look at where our pre-op was and the corrections, and kind of align everything to the smile design as we looked at. So this is a really nice feature, and it really makes your smile designing much more predictable. And just some little fine tunes, and we're going to hit next. Okay, now the software is going to allow you to bring in shading. So I like doing a custom matching, so I can hit the matching and I can click on an existing tooth, and you can see it will change the shade of my new teeth. Okay, so if I wanted to go brighter, I can go brighter. It gives you complete customization on your shading. And then it creates a nice little smile report that you could print out and send to your patient for a preview now of this design. So we are not going to match that pre-op scan, so we're going to hit next. And the emergence profile, we're going to skip this because we're going to do an ideal emergence profile. So I'm going to just hit next to that and go right around the horn, because we will make custom emergence profiles. So this is the design that we had started with within the picture. So I'm going to go into the tooth placement section, and now we're going to start to fine tune this. Okay, so I'm first going to look at my arch form and just look at all the different views here. Turn on what I want with the bite, see where we're at according to the lower arch. And I like to go into the advanced mode to start to work out some of the details. So take those screw access off and size of length, and just kind of look over where I want to go with the smile design. So in this advanced tab in the middle, I like to go and slide those sliders right over, and it flattens out my incisal edges and my occlusion. This actually helps me align the teeth better, and for these full arch cases, it provides a little bit better occlusion for our patients to function with, rather than steep inclines. Okay, so just by using our tools, we can rotate and move things around. I always have the show distance on so that I can see where my bite is hitting, where it's hitting heavy, and this is where kind of the pretty fun stuff goes in aligning your tooth positions. And you can spend as much or little time in this to get your better outcome. I'd like to spend time getting my symmetry really nailed nicely here. Okay, so you can see it's starting to take some shape, and back in, rotate this slightly in as well, and look from a lot of different views to really help me out. Don't you wish you got bone reduction like this all the time, guys? So you can see we got a little diastema, so we're going to close that up and just go ahead and fine tune this all the way around the arch. getting pretty close to where I like. I love the view from underneath. That really shows some good symmetry as well. Arch form, I'm noticing it's a little bit narrow on that side. So if I go into my chain mode, okay, I can actually move a whole section without worrying about, there we go. So now I can just move those 3 teeth in a nice manner. Okay, I'm going to pull that back just a little bit as well. Back to my simple and make sure that what I did didn't mess anything up. I'm going to go back into my smile design. So you saw I clicked on that smile design view, which brings me back into alignment with my picture. Okay, and now I can really start looking. Did I get that midline and all my symmetry aligned with that patient nicely? All right. And again, this is where you can really get some fine tuning together. Make sure we get a nice smile view for our patient here. Okay. And you can see I can hit all simultaneously. And I can just pull everything down slightly. Scale. You see how I can make them a little bit longer and narrower by hitting the scale button there. Just slightly to give a little bit better length to width ratio. He was showing a little bit too much gums, and I want to make sure that that looks a little bit better for him. Look pretty good at this point, so we'll turn that off and go through the next step. We will be able to go back and actually do some more fine-tuning. So we're going to go to the wizard. Yes, we're going to overwrite the existing files with the current tooth design and make that. Next, we're going to do our abutment bottoms. Now, this is where we get to look at ASC and change the direction. You can see we have some screw access hole corrections we'd like to make. So with the NobelProcera software and manufacturing, we can actually allow for another 25 degrees of angle correction. I like to use the draggable, as you see here, and so I can just take that little ball and click on it, and I can move that and put that right in the cingulum, right where I want it. And this is really, I like to use ASC pretty much on every screw retain case I do, even if the implant position seems pretty ideal. I can try to keep it either away from a functional cusp, or like in this case, I can angle this a little bit mesial just to allow the clinician to have a little bit better access of that screw going in and out, so they don't have to have their driver straight up and down. So I tend to like to use the this feature quite a bit on our designs. So even if it's a small 6 degree or a 23 degree. So I've got my angle correction where I want. Let me see on the long axis, and I can straighten that just a little bit. There we go. It just makes for a nice, easy case for our doctor to work with. Okay, so hit next on that. That's going to preserve those positions and create our abutment bottoms, which is basically what's going to merge together with our prosthesis. Okay, so we'll look at the free-forming feature, which I'm going to skip because I'm going to freeform later, and I'll go right into my next step, which is creating the wax bottom. The wax bottom is basically what we're going to adapt our base to. So I'm going to look at the path of draw and align it with the ideal path of draw. It will go ahead and block out some of the undercuts to allow for the prosthesis to sit a little bit nicer. In a case like a hybrid, you don't really have to worry much about this step because we're not overlapping any tissue. But if this was a overdenture with some deep flanges, the angle would kind of make a difference. All right, so there's our virtual wax bottom, which looks good. Which now we're going to go ahead and design our gingival. Okay, so we're going to bring our gingival down just to cover our multi-units and go just enough distal around our teeth. If you didn't like your position, you can move those little green balls any way you want. Once you connect them together, you will now get your gingival design displayed, and make sure that you've got the coverage that you want. Okay, so that looks like a good start for me. The next is going to be the free forming of that gingival. And this is where you really can get creative. So it gives you a large region, which I like. So I'll pull up my gingival, make sure I'm covering the necks of my teeth where I want. Okay, and so I always start using the large region, going all the way around, and work my way down to more detail. Okay, you can see I still have some little spaces. I'll cover those up using the small region. So right now I'm just looking at covering the necks of those teeth, and now I click on the small region, where now I can just take those papillas and pull them up to close the embrasure spaces. Okay, so you can see where I'm pulling that up and closing that right out. This is a fun tool to play around with. Okay, so I've got my gingivals where I want them. Look around my palatal and do the same thing. I'll pull those up, make sure I have what I want. You can see I've got a large region, neck showing, so I'll bring those up. And then I'll go into the add remove button, and I'm just going to now just add some virtual wax. And this is, if you've ever waxed dentures, it's just like adding wax except much cooler. Alright, so I'm going to add the bulk where I want bulk. Okay, so I can have a nice symmetrical gingival, and same around the palatal. Just add some bulk around. And I could adjust the strength of this or the brush size based on the sliders. Then I'm going to go to the smooth flatten tool, and I'm going to just go ahead and smooth out where I added. And when I'm using this tool, I will, using my shift tool, which will kind of give it a higher speed, and without it, it gives me a nice smoother. So you kind of just play around with those two, and you'll see kind of how that works. And in this case, again, it's just going to be pretty basic wax up at this point. I'll fine tune it later. Okay, before I do that, I'm going to go in and make sure I've got gingival symmetry. Okay, because sometimes that wax will modify that. So I want to make sure that my necks aren't choked, they call it, or too much exposed. All right, so you can see, you can just fine-tune your gingival architecture at this point. Okay, so if I've got pretty good symmetry, I'm going to hit next, and this is where it's going to create the virtual wax up. And what it's the virtual wax up is merging now the gingival together with the teeth to create one solid hybrid to start working on. Okay, depending on the speed of your computer, this might take a few minutes. All right. See to that, but we've got a lot of our basics underway. We've got our tooth positions, we've got our gingival contours, and pretty close to having this finished up. Okay, and you can see now it is merging all that together, and now we've created our virtual wax up. It's going to allow us after this to go in and do another freeform. This time we can freeform everything in a merged environment now, which is becomes a little bit easier to start work with. So we can hit next. Okay, and now make that up solid. And start now doing my free forming on my wax up here. So you can see now I've got some work to do on the intaglio surface. Okay, so that's the first thing I like to start on with no concavities at all. So I like to take my smoothing tool and reduce that right down so that I only have flat or convex contours on this. Okay, I've got a little bit of extra bulk, so I'm going to take down my add remove tool, and then hitting the shift button I can actually reduce. It'll turn red on you. Okay, if it's green, it's going to add. So you can see now I can start to shape that gingival. Okay. And you can see we're going to create our contours around the emergence profile, which is why I don't use a preset emergence profile. I like to have that contoured based on the intaglio surface. So you can see it's starting to take some good shape. Still have a little bit of a concavity, so I'm going to continue to work on that. Add remove and take some of that bulk down. Now you see I just took that brush size down so that I can get in a little bit more detail, and now I just raise that up so I can smooth out those adjustments. So you'll get the hang of these tools. It will really make things go quicker for you. Again, using the shift key with your smooth tool will smooth things out rapidly. Just have to learn the balance between the two. Getting closer and closer. You can see the safety zone around that distal cylinder. That's a little subgingival. I want to make sure that we've got adequate space there. All right, so I like these views. So I went into my anatomic, and by looking at this emergence profile from the tissue, I can pull in the tissue to have a nice emergence. This way you don't get a crease in the lip. And ideally you want this to be no greater than a 60-degree emergence, okay? And that is the ideal profile for the profile prosthesis, all right? And so you can really go in and dial that in nicely by just pulling that back without moving the gingival portion of your teeth. It just allows that profile to come in. Unless you want to pull that back a little bit, okay? And I can see that's a little bulky for my taste. I'm just going to continue to pull that back until it has a really nice contour coming out of the tissue. And I'll go ahead and smooth that in where we just pulled that in from, and we're really getting some nice gingival contours now. Everybody focuses on the pretty teeth. I like to make sure my contours are, gingival contours are there. It's going to help the patient function much better long term. So I'm going to readapt now my basal surface, okay? So my intaglio, I'm going to reattach that because I made a lot of adjustment down there and I want to make sure I don't have too much tissue pressure. Okay, so by hitting the adapt on the basal, it's going to readapt that gingival so that I can get a more ideal amount of tissue compression, and but I still want to go back and remove any concavities that I have. Okay, but now you can see I'm a lot closer than where we were at first time around. Okay. And what's the ideal amount of tissue pressure? It's really up to the clinician. Some like them static, some like some solid tissue pressure. You know, so check with your clinician. I typically recommend, you know, slight compression of the tissue, which really helps with phonetics and make sure they don't get food trapped underneath there. Still have a cavity there, so I'm going to go thin that out with my add remove. But I'm going to do now this from the palatal, because if you remember on the facial we really got the emergence profile coming off the tissue where we want. Okay, so to remove that palatal lip, that's going to give me that nice convex flat surface, and they'll be able to clean from the palatal side. Okay, let's see, I just need a little bit of bulk where I've got some exposed on my areas there, but all in all I am getting close to the contours that I want. Let's check that out and see if I have good tissue pressure and good contours. And you can see I'm really getting to a nice look there. The next thing I can do now is go back into that anatomic, and now if I want to work on the shape of the teeth a little bit, I can do that here. Okay, if I want to adapt that the occlusion a little bit, I hit static occlusion, and it will then do a slight cut of the interferences. Okay, so I will do it at this point so that I can make sure I have nice positive contacts where I want them. Now it's going ahead and adapting that occlusal. You can see now I've got some small wear facets in there, so I'll go into my smoothing tool, take my brush size down, and just start to smooth that out slightly. A little bit of blue means a little bit of contact, and you can see from the chart above the darker the blue, the lighter that contact is. Alright, so here's some fine tuning on my sagittal edges, and this is where you can really make some nice customized teeth here and give some individualism to patients here. Okay. By this a little bit. So now I'm going to pull that photo back in, and I do that little fine tuning, him staring me back. So I turned on the True Smile, which kind of gives me a little bit of different color and contrast to work with. And sometimes I like that for shadowing, and I can really go in and fine tune. Okay, so that was sticking out a little bit more than I wanted, and well, I'm in a pretty good position where I like right now. Turn that off. Now let's fine tune our bite. Taglio, and I want to make sure I have pretty even contact all around. My cusps, just pull those ridges down so I have a little bit of contact going. Okay, so you can see that little blue coming in. That's what I'm looking for. There you go, a little bit of blue right on my ridges where I'm looking for. Okay, so again, you can really dial in the bite nicely here and get a nice equal occlusion. Coming right in. That's a little bit heavy, so I'm going to be able to just take that down. Now I've got some pretty equal wear all the way around. So we're going to hit the next button. Which is now going to take all that free forming and merge that all in. Just going to give me the merged files. Wanted to adjust our screw hole design. I skipped that normally. And now we are done. We're at our merge and save. Okay. And with NobelProcera, once you have your merge and save done, okay, you submit it. So I'm going to hit the next button. Saves that out. So with the dental share, it gives you an automatic push right into the NobelProcera production. So we're going to hit on that dental share tab. Okay, it's going to open up our dental share account. Where we go into the production, the Nobel production, NobelProcera, production data, and just hit the OK button. And that's all you need to do to send that file to Nobel Biocare. Thank you.